I'm standing in a gallery in Gangnam, camera in hand, when I realize I've just photographed 3 men executing someone in an alley. The shutter clicked 5 times before my brain caught up to what my eyes were seeing. Now those same 3 men are walking toward me, and I have exactly 10 seconds to decide if I'm about to die in Seoul. Welcome back, my fierce hearts and midnight dreamers. Before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed. Hit that like button and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing our little dark romance family stretch across cities, countries, and time zones. Every click, every comment, every bit of love you leave here helps us keep unraveling these dangerous love stories and high-stakes betrayals together. Southwest, find your quiet place, dim the lights and get ready. Naledi Khumalo had been in Seoul for exactly 11 days when her life became complicated in ways she couldn't have imagined. The city had welcomed her with open arms, neon lights reflecting off rain-slick streets, the smell of street food mixing with expensive perfume, the constant hum of a metropolis that never truly slept. She'd come for her exhibition, a 3-month showcase of urban photography that had taken her 2 years to prepare. Cape Town to Seoul. Home to the unknown. It was supposed to be the opportunity of a lifetime. The gallery owner, Mrs. Park, had warned her about wandering too far into certain neighborhoods after dark, but Naledi had laughed it off. She'd grown up in Johannesburg, navigated the streets of Cape Town alone since she was 16. Seoul felt safe by comparison, clean and organized, a city that made sense even when she couldn't read the signs. She was wrong. The alley in Itaewon had looked perfect in the fading light. Graffiti crawled up brick walls, fire escapes created geometric shadows, and the way the sun cut between buildings created this golden hour magic that photographers dreamed about. She'd raised her camera, framing the shot, adjusting for the backlight, when she saw them. 3 men in expensive suits. 1 man on his knees. The conversation was brief. No shouting, no drama. Just words exchanged in Korean, calm and measured, like they were discussing the weather. Then the man in the middle, tall and broad-shouldered with hair swept back from his face, pulled out a gun and shot the kneeling man twice. Once in the chest, once in the head. Professional. Clean. Naledi's camera had captured it all. Her hands were shaking when they confiscated her equipment. 2 men in black suits, appearing from nowhere, surrounding her before she could run. They didn't hurt her, didn't even speak harshly. Just took her camera, her phone, and gestured for her to follow. She thought about screaming, but the street was empty now, and something in their eyes told her that screaming would be a mistake. They brought her to a building 3 blocks away. From the outside, it looked like an upscale gallery. Inside, the walls were covered in contemporary art, track lighting highlighting sculptures and paintings that probably cost more than her entire exhibition. They led her to an office in the back, furnished in black leather and dark wood, where the man who'd pulled the trigger was waiting. "Sit," he said in perfect English. Naledi remained standing. "I want my camera back." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Your camera is being taken care of. The memory card has been removed. You'll get the camera back tomorrow. You can't just steal my property." "I'm not stealing. I'm protecting." He leaned back in his chair, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "You photographed something you shouldn't have. We're simply correcting that mistake." "I didn't see anything." "You saw everything. Your hands were shaking so badly you probably got motion blur on at least 3 of those shots." He opened a laptop, turned it toward her. Her photos were already uploaded, displayed in a grid. The execution sequence was crystal clear. "You're a good photographer. Better than good. These are quite artistic, actually. The composition, the lighting. Under different circumstances, I'd offer to buy prints." Naledi's mouth went dry. "Who are you?" "My name is Choi Min-jun. This is my gallery." "Well, one of them. I collect art. Among other things." He closed the laptop. "You're the photographer from South Africa. The one with the exhibition at the Kukya Gallery. Urban landscapes. Cities in shadow. I've seen the promotional materials. Impressive work. How do you know about my exhibition?" "I know about everything that happens in this neighborhood. It's my job to know." He stood, walked to a cabinet, poured 2 glasses of whiskey without asking if she wanted one. You're in Seoul for 3 months. You have a visa sponsored by the gallery. You're staying in a serviced apartment in Hanam-dong. You send money home to your mother in Cape Town every month. You have a younger brother studying engineering at UCT. Should I continue? The fear that had been simmering in her chest turned into something sharper. Are you threatening my family? I'm demonstrating that I'm thorough. There's a difference. He handed her a glass. Drink. You look like you need it. She didn't touch it. I won't tell anyone what I saw. I know you won't. Because you're smart, and smart people understand consequences. He sat on the edge of his desk, close enough that she could smell his cologne, expensive and subtle. You're going to leave here tonight. Tomorrow, your camera will be delivered to your apartment. You're going to continue your work, attend your exhibition opening, enjoy Seoul. And you're going to forget what you saw in that alley. And if I don't, then you become a problem. And I solve problems very efficiently. He drank his whiskey, watching her over the rim of the glass. But I don't think that will be necessary. You seem like someone who values her life and career. Am I wrong? Naledi picked up the glass and drank it in one swallow, the burn giving her courage. You're not wrong. Good. Then we understand each other. He smiled again, and this time it almost looked genuine. Welcome to Seoul, Miss Khumalo. I hope you enjoy your stay. They returned her to her apartment in a black Mercedes. No one spoke during the drive. When she finally got inside, locked the door, and checked her phone which they'd returned, it was past midnight. She had 17 missed calls from Mrs. Park and a dozen texts asking where she was. She ignored them all, took a shower hot enough to burn, and tried to convince herself that tomorrow she'd wake up and this would feel like a nightmare rather than reality. Her camera arrived at 9 the next morning, delivered by courier. Everything was intact except the memory card was gone, replaced with a brand new one still in its packaging. There was also an envelope. Inside was an invitation to a private gallery opening that evening and a handwritten note. Perhaps we can start over. You're an artist. I'm a collector. We should talk. CM. She threw the invitation in the trash. She lasted 3 days before curiosity got the better of her. The gallery was in Cheongdam-dong, nestled between luxury boutiques and Michelin-starred restaurants. The invitation got her past the door and into a space filled with Seoul's elite. Politicians, actors, business tycoons, all mingling over champagne and canapés while admiring paintings that probably cost more than most people's houses. Min-jun spotted her immediately, excusing himself from a conversation with a woman dripping in diamonds to approach. You came. I wasn't sure you would. I'm here for the art, Naledi said, keeping her voice cool. Of course. Let me show you around. He offered his arm. She didn't take it, but she followed as he guided her through the exhibition, speaking about each piece with genuine knowledge and passion. Whatever else he was, Min-jun understood art. He didn't just collect it. He lived it. You have good taste, she admitted reluctantly as they stood before a sculpture that looked like frozen water. High praise from someone whose work I admire. He turned to face her. I meant what I said. I've followed your career since I saw the exhibition announcement. Your perspective is unique. The way you capture light in darkness, find beauty in decay. It's haunting. You looked into me before I photographed you. I look into everyone who exhibits in my territory. That's not personal. This is. He gestured to the gallery. I wanted you to see that I'm not just what you witnessed in that alley. I'm many things, Miss Khumalo. Some of them are even legitimate. And the illegitimate things. Necessary. This city isn't run by politicians and police. It's run by people like me. We maintain order. We protect interests. Sometimes that requires unpleasant actions. You murdered someone. I executed someone who betrayed his organization and got 3 people killed in the process. If I hadn't done it, someone else would have. At least I made it quick. He said it so matter-of-factly that Naledi almost believed it was reasonable. Almost. I should leave. Stay. Please. One more drink, one more conversation. Then if you want to leave and never speak to me again, I'll respect that. His eyes held something she hadn't expected. Vulnerability. Loneliness. I don't often meet people who see me as more than what I represent. You're an outsider. You have no stake in Seoul's underworld. That makes you refreshingly honest. Against her better judgment, Naledi stayed. They talked for 2 hours, about art and photography, about Cape Town and Seoul, about the way cities revealed themselves differently depending on who was looking. Min-jun was intelligent, cultured, surprisingly funny when he let his guard down. By the time she left, she'd almost forgotten how they'd met. Almost. She didn't see him again for 2 weeks. But she met his brothers. The club in Hongdae was packed, bass vibrating through the floor, lights strobing across dancing bodies. Naledi had come with other photographers from her exhibition group, trying to embrace the Seoul nightlife everyone kept telling her about. She was at the bar ordering a drink when she noticed a man harassing a young woman in the corner. The woman was clearly uncomfortable, trying to leave, but the men kept blocking her path. Naledi moved without thinking, pushing through the crowd. "Hey." She said no. The men turned, eyes glazed with alcohol. "Mind your business. This is my business. Leave her alone." He grabbed Naledi's wrist. The grip was hard enough to hurt. Before she could react, someone else was there, yanking the man away and slamming him against the wall with controlled violence. "She told you to leave." The voice was smooth, dangerous. "I suggest you listen." The drunk man looked at Naledi's defender and immediately paled. Whatever he saw made him stumble backward, apologizing, disappearing into the crowd. The young woman thanked them both and fled. Naledi turned to see who'd intervened. He was beautiful in a way that was almost unfair. Sharp jawline, intense eyes, hair falling artfully across his forehead. He wore a leather jacket over a silk shirt, expensive watches glinting on his wrist. When he smiled, it was devastating. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I'm fine. Thank you for helping. You helped first." "That was brave. Also reckless. That guy could have hurt you. I've handled worse." "I believe you." He extended his hand. "Jae-sung." "Naledi." His eyebrows rose. "South African. Is it that obvious? Your accent is beautiful. And I've heard about a photographer from Cape Town making waves in the art scene. Naledi Khumalo, right?" She was getting tired of people knowing who she was. "Do you work in art?" "Adjacent to it. My family has various interests in Seoul. Art is one of them." He signaled the bartender, ordered drinks for both of them without asking what she wanted. Normally that would annoy her, but something about the way he did it felt less presumptuous and more protective. "Let me buy you a drink." To apologize for Seoul's drunk assholes. They talked, and it was different from talking to Min-jun. Where Min-jun was calculated and controlled, Jae-sung was passionate and impulsive. He laughed easily, touched her arm when making a point, leaned close when the music got too loud. The attraction was immediate and electric. When he asked for her number, she gave it to him without hesitation. They started seeing each other. Coffee dates that turned into long walks through neighborhoods Naledi hadn't explored yet. Dinners at restaurants where Jae-sung seemed to know everyone. Late-night conversations that stretched until dawn. He was intense, overwhelming in the best possible way. He made her feel alive in a city where she'd been existing as an observer. "You're different from anyone I've ever met," he told her one night as they sat by the Han River, the city lights reflecting off the water. "You don't want anything from me." "What would I want?" "Most people want connections, favors, access to things my family controls. You just want to talk about art and photography and philosophy. It's refreshing. Your family is influential. You could say that." He didn't elaborate, and she didn't push. Everyone in Seoul seemed to come from important families. It was that kind of city. 3 weeks into whatever they were, Jae-sung invited her to a private dinner at an upscale restaurant in Gangnam. "There are people I want you to meet," he said. "My brothers. Family is important to me. I want them to know you." Naledi dressed carefully, nervous in a way she hadn't been since arriving in Seoul. Meeting family felt significant, a step toward something more serious than the passionate whirlwind they'd been caught in. She arrived at the restaurant, gave Jae-sung's name, and was led to a private room. Min-jun was sitting at the table. Naledi froze in the doorway. He looked up, and the flash of recognition in his eyes was quickly hidden behind a polite smile. You must be Naledi. Jae-sung has told us about you. Please, sit. She wanted to run. Instead, she sat, mind racing. Before she could process what was happening, Jae-sung arrived with another man. Younger than both Min-jun and Jae-sung, with quieter features and an observant gaze that took in everything without seeming to look directly at anything. Sorry I'm late, Jae-sung said, kissing Naledi's cheek before sitting beside her. Traffic was insane. This is my oldest brother, Min-jun, and my youngest brother, Tae-hyun. Tae-hyun nodded politely. It's nice to meet you. Jae-sung talks about you constantly. Does he? Naledi's voice came out steadier than she expected. She looked at Min-jun, who was studying her with amusement in his eyes. All good things, I hope, Min-jun said smoothly. Though I have to admit, you look familiar. Have we met before? I don't think so, Naledi lied. Perhaps at a gallery opening. I collect art. Maybe. The dinner was excruciating. Jae-sung was oblivious to the undercurrent of tension, talking enthusiastically about his brothers, about family traditions, about the businesses they ran together. Min-jun played along perfectly, acting like they were strangers making polite conversation. But every time their eyes met, Naledi saw the warning in his gaze. Don't tell him. Don't ruin this. Tae-hyun was the only one who seemed to notice something was off. He didn't speak much, but when he did, his questions were pointed. How did you two meet? He asked Jae-sung. At a club in Hongdae. She was defending someone from a drunk asshole. Brave and beautiful. I was done for. That does sound like you, Tae-hyun said, but he was looking at Naledi when he said it. You like to rescue people. I like to help when I can, Jae-sung corrected. There's a difference. Is there? Tae-hyun's gaze didn't waver from Naledi. What brings you to Seoul, Miss Khumalo? My photography exhibition. At the Kukya Gallery. I've heard good things. I'd like to see it sometime. You're welcome anytime. Maybe we could go together, Min-jun suggested casually. I've been meaning to see it myself. We could make it a family outing. Jae-sung grinned. That's a great idea. Naledi, would you mind giving us a personal tour? She minded everything about this situation, but she smiled and agreed because what else could she do? The rest of the dinner passed in a blur. When it finally ended, Jae-sung walked her to a taxi, kissed her goodnight, promised to call her tomorrow. Min-jun and Tae-hyun stood by the restaurant entrance, watching. Your brothers seem nice, Naledi said, hating herself for the lie. They're the best. A little intense sometimes, but they'd do anything for family. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I'm glad you met them. This means a lot to me. The guilt was a physical weight in her chest. 2 days later, Tae-hyun showed up at her apartment. She opened the door to find him standing there, hands in his pockets, looking nothing like his brothers in their expensive suits. He wore jeans and a simple black sweater, glasses perched on his nose. He looked like a graduate student, not a criminal. How did you find my address? I know things. It's what I do for the family. He didn't apologize for it. Can I come in? We need to talk. Every instinct told her to slam the door. Instead, she stepped aside and let him enter. He looked around her apartment, taking in the photographs taped to the walls, the equipment scattered across tables, the organized chaos of a working artist. You're talented, he said, studying a print of Cape Town's waterfront at dusk. You see cities the way most people see people. Finding the soul underneath the surface. Why are you here? Because you're lying to my brother. He turned to face her. You and Min-jun know each other. I saw it at dinner. The way you both pretended to be strangers, it was too perfect. Too practiced. So I did some digging. Imagine my surprise when I discovered you were at his gallery the same night your camera was confiscated. The same night you photographed something you shouldn't have in an alley in Itaewon. Naledi's blood ran cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. And now you're dating Jae-sung, which is either spectacularly bad luck or spectacularly bad judgment. I can't decide which. He sat on her couch, uninvited. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me exactly what you saw and what Min-jun said to you. Then we're going to figure out what to do about this situation before it explodes. I'm not telling you anything. Then I'll tell Jae-sung myself. About the execution, about your meeting with Min-jun, about the threats. How do you think he'll react to knowing his girlfriend photographed his brother committing murder? That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. Tae-hyun's voice was gentle despite the threat. But I'm trying to protect my family. All of them, including Jae-sung. He's falling in love with you. I can see it. And if this secret comes out the wrong way, it will destroy him. Naledi sat down, suddenly exhausted. She told him everything. The alley, the gallery, the conversations with Min-jun. When she finished, Tae-hyun was quiet for a long moment. Min-jun should have told us, he finally said. This is exactly the kind of complication we don't need. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I didn't know Jae-sung was his brother. I believe you. Seoul is a big city, but our world is small. He stood, walked to the window, looked out at the street below. You have two choices. You can tell Jae-sung the truth and deal with the fallout. Or you can break up with him now, cleanly, before anyone gets hurt worse than they already will be. Those are terrible options. They're the only options. He turned back to her. For what it's worth, I don't think you're a bad person. I think you're caught in something you don't understand. Our family, what we do, it's complicated. It's not something you can photograph and capture. It's bigger than that. Then help me understand. And he did. He sat back down and told her about the Choi brothers, about the empire they built from their father's legacy, about the rules and codes that govern Seoul's underworld. He explained that what she'd seen in the alley wasn't random violence but justice in a world where the police couldn't reach. He made it sound almost reasonable. We're not good men, he said. But we're necessary men. Seoul needs order. We provide it. By killing people. By maintaining balance. It's not pretty, but it's effective. They talked for hours. Unlike his brothers, Tae-hyun didn't try to charm or intimidate her. He just spoke honestly, answering her questions, explaining the life she'd stumbled into. By the time he left, Naledi didn't have answers, but she had understanding. And somehow, that made everything more complicated. She tried to break up with Jae-sung. She really did. But he wouldn't let her. Did I do something wrong? He asked when she suggested they should slow down. They were in his apartment, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, and he looked genuinely distressed. No, you've been perfect. That's the problem. How is that a problem? Because this is moving too fast. I'm only here for 3 months. Long distance doesn't work. We should end this before it gets too serious. It's already serious for me. He took her hands. I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. But I've never felt like this about anyone. You make me want to be better than I am. You make me believe I could be something other than what my family needs me to be. Jae-sung. I love you. He said it simply, directly, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I know it's too soon to say it. I don't care. I love you, Naledi. And I think you might love me too. The worst part was he was right. Somewhere between the coffee dates and late-night conversations, she'd fallen for him. For his passion, his intensity, the way he looked at her like she was the only person in the world. It was intoxicating and terrifying in equal measure. I do, she whispered. But that doesn't mean this will work. Then we'll make it work. Stay in Seoul. Extend your visa. I'll help you. You could work here, exhibit here. We could build something together. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to believe in the fantasy he was painting. Instead, she kissed him and let him think she was considering it, even though she knew it was impossible. How could she build a life with someone whose brother she'd watched commit murder? How could she love someone whose family business was violence? Min-jun made the decision more complicated when he showed up at her exhibition opening. The Kukya gallery was packed with Seoul's art world elite. Mrs. Park had outdone herself with the promotion, and Naledi's photographs lined the walls, her vision of cities in shadow on full display. She was talking to a collector when she saw him enter, immaculate in a tailored suit, moving through the crowd like he owned the space. He probably did. "Congratulations," he said when he reached her. "The exhibition is stunning. You should be proud." "Thank you." She kept her voice professional. "I didn't expect to see you here. I told you I admire your work. I meant it." He gestured to a photograph of Cape Town's District 6, ruins and resilience captured in black and white. "This one. I'd like to purchase it. It's not for sale. Everything is for sale at the right price. Not this. It's personal. Even better. Personal art has more value." He named a figure that made her head spin. "That's my offer. Think about it." Before she could respond, Jae-sung appeared, sliding an arm around her waist. "Min-jun. I didn't know you were coming. Wouldn't miss it." Naledi's work deserves support. The two brothers looked at each other, something passing between them that Naledi couldn't interpret. "She's very talented. You chose well." "I didn't choose. We found each other." Jae-sung kissed her temple. "Lucky coincidence." "Coincidence," Min-jun repeated, and the way he said it made it sound like an accusation. "Yes. Very lucky." Tae-hyun arrived an hour later, alone and quiet as always. He spent time studying each photograph, reading the descriptions, taking in the full scope of her work. When he finally approached her, his praise was simple but sincere. "You see pain," he said, standing before a photograph of Johannesburg's Hillbrow, towers rising above poverty. "You don't look away from it. That's rare. Pain is part of cities. Ignoring it would be dishonest. Most people prefer comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths." He met her eyes. "Have you made a decision?" "About Jae-sung." "I'm still with him." "That's not a decision. That's avoidance." "Maybe I'm hoping the problem will solve itself." "It won't." Tae-hyun's voice was gentle but firm. "These things never do." He was right. The situation didn't resolve. It escalated. Min-jun started appearing everywhere Naledi went. At cafes where she worked on editing, at galleries she visited, at restaurants where she ate with friends. He never approached directly, just made his presence known. A nod across the room. A drink sent to her table. A reminder that he was watching. Jae-sung noticed. "Is Min-jun bothering you?" "No. Why would he?" "He's been acting strange since he met you. Possessive. It's not like him." Jae-sung's jaw tensed. "If he's making you uncomfortable, I'll talk to him." "Don't. It's fine. He's just interested in my work." "It feels like more than that." It was more than that. Min-jun was establishing dominance, making it clear that he'd seen her first, known her first. The fact that Jae-sung had her now was irrelevant. In Min-jun's mind, she was his discovery. The tension came to a head at a family dinner Min-jun hosted at his penthouse. All three brothers were there, and the atmosphere was charged from the moment Naledi arrived. Min-jun had purchased the District 6 photograph despite her protests, and it hung prominently in his living room. When Jae-sung saw it, his expression darkened. "I thought she said it wasn't for sale." "I convinced her otherwise," Min-jun said smoothly. "Artists need patrons. I'm happy to support her work. She's my girlfriend. If anyone supports her work, it should be me." "Why?" "You don't understand art. You just understand what you want. And you understand art." Jae-sung's voice rose. "Or do you just understand acquisition?" "Both." Min-jun poured wine, unbothered by his brother's anger. "I appreciate things for what they are. You appreciate things for how they make you feel. There's a difference." Tae-hyun interrupted before it could escalate. "Can we eat? I'm hungry, and watching you two measure egos is exhausting." Dinner was tense. Every conversation felt like a minefield. Min-jun asked pointed questions about Naledi's plans after her visa expired. Jae-sung countered by talking about the future they were building together. Tae-hyun watched it all with increasing concern. You should leave Seoul, Tae-hyun told Naledi later, when they had a moment alone on the balcony. This isn't going to end well. I know. Then why are you still here? Because I love him. And I don't know how to walk away. Learn. Fast. Before my brothers destroy each other over you. But it was already too late. The Choi brothers, who'd been united for 30 years, were fracturing. Business decisions became arguments. Old resentments surfaced. Jae-sung accused Min-jun of trying to control everything. Min-jun accused Jae-sung of being reckless and emotional. Tae-hyun tried to mediate, but even he was starting to take sides. Their rivals noticed. A gang from Busan tested their borders, pushing into territory the Choi brothers had controlled for years. Usually, they would have responded with overwhelming force. Instead, they were distracted. Divided. The attack came during a meeting at one of their warehouses. Gunfire erupted. People died. By the time the brothers fought off the assault, 3 of their men were dead and a shipment worth millions was gone. They gathered at Min-jun's penthouse afterward, bloodied and furious. Naledi had been waiting there with Jae-sung, terrified when he came through the door covered in blood that wasn't his. Now she stood in the corner, watching the brothers face each other. This is your fault, Jae-sung snarled at Min-jun, you've been so busy obsessing over her that you missed the signs. My fault. Min-jun laughed, harsh and bitter. You're the one who brought her into our lives. You're the one who fell in love with a woman you met 6 weeks ago and decided she was more important than everything we've built. She is more important. Then you're a fool. Min-jun looked at Naledi, and there was something broken in his eyes. She's been lying to you from the beginning. She knew who I was before you met her. She photographed me executing someone. I took her camera, threatened her, and she never told you. Did she? The silence was deafening. Jae-sung turned to Naledi. Is that true? She couldn't speak. The look on his face destroyed her. Tell him, Min-jun pressed. Tell him how we met. Tell him about the alley and the gallery and the choices you made. Tell him why you really stayed in Seoul. I stayed because of you, Naledi said, voice shaking. Because I fell in love with you. Everything else, I was trying to protect you from. I didn't want this to hurt you. But it does hurt. Jae-sung's voice broke. You've been lying to me. Both of you. All of you. He looked at Tae-hyun. Did you know? Yes, Tae-hyun admitted. I found out weeks ago. I told her to tell you or leave. She chose to stay. Get out. Jae-sung pointed to the door. All of you. I can't look at any of you right now. Naledi tried to approach him, but he backed away. Don't. Just don't. She left with Tae-hyun. Min-jun stayed, and through the door, she could hear the brothers screaming at each other in Korean. Tae-hyun drove her home in silence. When they arrived at her apartment, he walked her to the door. I'm sorry, he said. For what? For all of it. For my family, for the situation, for not forcing you to leave when I should have. He hesitated. And I'm sorry because I understand why he fell in love with you. You're remarkable. You see the world differently. In another life, in different circumstances, maybe things could have been different. Naledi realized with sudden clarity that Tae-hyun had feelings for her too. Quiet feelings he'd never voiced, hidden behind his role as mediator and observer. All 3 brothers, tangled up in the same woman. I'm leaving Seoul, she said. My exhibition ends in 2 weeks. I'll finish my commitments and go home. That's wise. He looked sad. Will you say goodbye to them? I don't know. She didn't see any of them for 10 days. Jae-sung wouldn't answer her calls. Min-jun went back to being invisible. Tae-hyun respected her space. She threw herself into work, dismantling her exhibition, packing her equipment, preparing to leave the city that had broken her heart. Then, 3 days before her flight, all 3 brothers showed up at her apartment. Together. She opened the door to find them standing in the hallway, looking like they'd called a truce but didn't know how to maintain it. We need to talk, Min-jun said. She let them in because she owed them that much. They sat in her living room, three brothers who looked nothing alike and everything alike, united in their brokenness. Min-jun spoke first. I'm sorry. For threatening you, for using my knowledge of you against Jae-sung, for being possessive of something that was never mine. I told myself I was protecting my family, but really I was protecting my ego. I saw you first. I thought that meant something. It doesn't. Jae-sung went next. I'm sorry for falling too hard too fast. For making you responsible for my happiness. For not seeing the impossible position you were in. You were trying to protect me, and I made that harder instead of easier. Tae-hyun was last. I'm sorry for not being honest about my own feelings. For watching from the sidelines and judging when I should have acted. For putting you in the middle of our family dysfunction. Naledi looked at these three men who'd turned her world upside down. I'm sorry too. For not being stronger. For not walking away when I should have. For letting this happen. Where does that leave us? Jae-sung asked. I'm leaving Seoul in 3 days. And if we asked you to stay? Min-jun said it softly. Not for me. Not for any one of us. But what if we asked? I'd say no. Because this can't work. You three are brothers. You need each other more than any of you need me. And I can't be the thing that destroys that bond. You're not destroying it, Tae-hyun said. We did that ourselves. Maybe. But I'm the catalyst. And the only way to fix this is for me to remove myself from the equation. She looked at Jae-sung, her heart breaking all over again. I love you. I need you to know that. What we had was real. Was, he repeated, the word like a wound. Past tense. Has to be. You see that, don't you? There's no version of this where we all get what we want without someone getting destroyed. Min-jun stood, walked to the window. What if we could make it work? What if we put aside our pride and actually tried to share? You don't share anything, Naledi said. None of you do. It's not in your nature. You're men who take and hold and protect. Asking you to share would be asking you to be someone you're not. People change. Not that much. Not when it matters. She turned to Jae-sung. You said I make you want to be better. But I also make you weaker. I distract you. I divide you from your brothers. That's not love. That's poison. He flinched like she'd struck him. Don't say that. It's true. Look at what happened at the warehouse. People died because you three were too busy fighting over me to see the threat coming. How many more people have to die before you admit this is toxic? The silence was heavy with truth they couldn't deny. So what do you want? Jae-sung's voice was hollow. For us to just let you go. Pretend this never happened. I want you to remember me as someone who loved you enough to leave. I want you to fix things with your brothers. I want you to build your empire and live your lives and maybe, sometimes, think about the photographer from Cape Town who saw you for who you really were. And what are we? Min-jun asked. Dangerous. Beautiful. Broken. Human. She smiled sadly. You're men trying to be gods in a world that doesn't allow for gods. And I'm just a woman who took pictures and fell in love with the wrong people. Tae-hyun spoke for the first time in minutes. For what it's worth, I think you're wrong. About being the wrong people. You're exactly the right person. Just the wrong time, wrong place, wrong circumstances. That's just another way of saying wrong. Maybe. He stood, moved closer. But I want you to know something before you go. You changed us. All of us. Min-jun smiled more around you. Jae-sung talked about futures instead of just living in the present. And me, I let myself feel something other than responsibility for the first time in years. That matters. Even if it ends badly, it matters. Naledi felt tears on her face. I wish things were different. So do we, Min-jun said. But wishing doesn't change reality. You're right to leave. You're right that we need each other more than we need you. But that doesn't make it hurt less. Jae-sung hadn't moved from the couch. He sat there, head in his hands, shoulders shaking. Naledi knelt in front of him, took his face in her hands, made him look at her. "I will never forget you," she said. "The way you laugh. The way you see the world. The way you made me feel alive in a foreign city. You gave me 3 months of magic. That's more than most people get in a lifetime. It's not enough. I know. But it's what we have." She kissed him, soft and final. "Take care of yourself. Take care of your brothers. Be the man I fell in love with, not the man your anger wants you to be." He pulled her close, held her like if he just held tight enough she'd change her mind. "I love you. I know. I love you too." When they finally let go, Min-jun and Tae-hyun were waiting by the door. Min-jun paused, looked like he wanted to say something, then just nodded. Tae-hyun lingered. "If you ever come back to Seoul," he said quietly. "If you ever need anything, call me. Not as a brother of men you loved, but as a friend. I'll be here." "Why?" "Because you're the only person who ever saw all 3 of us clearly. Who didn't pick favorites or try to play us against each other. Who looked at our empire and saw the cost of building it. That kind of honesty is rare. I value it. Thank you. Also," he added, even quieter, "because in another life, I think I could have loved you the right way. Steady. Patient. Without all the fireworks and drama. Just quiet and real. And maybe you could have loved that version too." Naledi touched his face gently. "In another life, maybe I would have. But not this one. Not this one." They left. She heard their footsteps in the hallway, the elevator doors closing, the sound of them disappearing from her life. She stood in her apartment, surrounded by packed boxes and the ruins of everything she'd built in Seoul, and let herself finally break down. The last 3 days passed in a blur. She said goodbye to Mrs. Park, who cried and made her promise to come back for another exhibition. She visited the places that had become familiar, the tea house where she'd met Tae-hyun, the river where she'd walked with Jae-sung, the gallery where Min-jun had shown her art and vulnerability in equal measure. Seoul was beautiful in its goodbye, winter settling over the city, snow beginning to fall. She didn't hear from any of them until the night before her flight. Tae-hyun showed up at midnight with a package. "From all of us," he said. "Don't open it until you're on the plane." Inside were 3 things. From Min-jun, a letter of introduction to art collectors in Cape Town and Johannesburg, his network open to her, no strings attached. From Jae-sung, a bracelet he'd worn every day since they met, silver and simple, with an inscription in Korean she'd have to get translated. And from Tae-hyun, a photograph he'd taken of her at her exhibition opening. She was looking at one of her own pieces, unaware of the camera, and her face held such love for her work that it made her beautiful in a way posed portraits never could. "We wanted you to have pieces of us," Tae-hyun said. "To remember that we weren't all bad. That some of it was good. All of it was good. That's the problem. If it had been bad, leaving would be easy. Nothing about this is easy." He hugged her, brief and warm. "Safe travels, Naledi Khumalo. May your photographs continue to show people the truth they're afraid to see." At the airport the next day, Naledi checked her bags, got her boarding pass, and sat in the departure lounge watching Seoul through the windows. She thought about staying. She thought about going back and fighting for something that couldn't be fought for. She thought about all the ways this story could have ended differently. But in the end, she boarded the plane. Somewhere in Seoul, 3 brothers were rebuilding what they'd broken. Working together to repair the fractures, to restore the empire that had suffered from their distraction. They would never be the same. Naledi had changed them in ways that couldn't be undone. But they would survive. Min-jun threw himself into expansion, opening new galleries, laundering money through legitimate art sales, building something that might someday become more legal than criminal. He never bought another piece of art without thinking of her, wondering if she'd approve of his taste. Jae-sung became more careful. Less impulsive. He stopped picking fights he didn't need to win and started picking battles that mattered. He wore the bracelet every day until the clasp broke, then had it repaired and wore it some more. A reminder that passion without wisdom was just destruction in a prettier package. Tae-hyun kept the photograph of Naledi in his desk drawer. Sometimes, when the weight of keeping his family together became too heavy, he'd look at it and remember that there were people in the world who chose honestly over comfort. It made his job feel less like a burden and more like a calling. They never spoke about her directly. But she was there, a ghost in the spaces between them, a lesson learned in the hardest way possible. They were stronger for having known her. They were sadder for having lost her. They were brothers again, but different brothers. Better ones, maybe. Or at least more self-aware. Naledi returned to Cape Town and threw herself into work. Her Seoul exhibition had made her name known in international circles. Galleries reached out. Collectors commissioned pieces. She traveled to New York, London, Tokyo, Berlin, capturing cities in shadow wherever she went. Her work got darker, more raw. Critics called it her heartbreak period and praised the emotional depth. She never went back to Seoul. But sometimes, late at night, she'd look at the 3 gifts they'd given her. She'd put on the bracelet, read Min-jun's letter of introduction that she'd never used, study Tae-hyun's photograph. She'd remember coffee dates and gallery openings and brothers who'd loved her in 3 different ways, all of them wrong for the situation, all of them right for who they were. And she'd think about how love wasn't always enough. How sometimes the kindest thing you could do for someone was walk away. How cities in shadow were beautiful precisely because the darkness made the light more precious. Seoul had taught her that. The Choi brothers had taught her that. And now she carried those lessons with her, city to city, photograph to photograph, building a life from the ruins of what could have been. It wasn't the ending anyone had wanted. But it was the ending they'd needed. And in the dark romance of it all, in the high-stakes betrayal of heart versus family, in the impossible choice between 3 kinds of love, she'd found something true. She'd found herself. Years later, Naledi would receive a message from an unknown number. Just 3 words in Korean, followed by a translation, "We remember you." She'd never know which brother sent it, or if maybe they'd all agreed to send it together. She'd never respond. But she'd save the message, another piece of soul to carry with her, another shadow to make the light more precious. Because that's what they'd been. What they'd always been. Shadows that showed her where the light was. Darkness that taught her to see. 3 brothers who'd loved her wrong and, in doing so, taught her what loving right might look like. Somewhere in Seoul, in a city that never slept, 3 brothers ran an empire. Somewhere in Cape Town, in a city built on mountains and ocean, a photographer captured the world in shadow and light. And the distance between them was measured not in miles but in might-have-beens, in parallel lives, in the kind of love that burns bright and brief and leaves scars that never quite fade. If you made it to the end of this dark romance, this tale of 3 brothers and one impossible choice, drop a comment below. Tell me which brother you would have chosen. Tell me if Naledi made the right call walking away. Tell me your own stories of love that couldn't work no matter how much you wanted it to. Hit that like button if this story grabbed you, broke you, made you feel something real. Subscribe because we're just getting started with these dangerous love stories, these high-stakes betrayals, these impossible choices that define us. Share this with someone who needs to hear about love that's wrong and right in equal measure. Until next time, my fierce hearts and midnight dreamers, remember that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Sometimes the strongest love is the one you let go.